The left will never stop their agenda to take over America. You are their enemy, and they will not negotiate. Prepare yourselves. Welcome to the Blue Shark Show with your host, Mike Lang.
It's been a few weeks since we did a video, and we do documents, we do audio, we do video of our elected officials, of public figures, and we really haven't had a lot to go on here in the last few weeks. We've had a few things, but we're going to catch everybody up on what's going on. The elections are kind of over and things are starting to build up. In one of the last videos that we had done, we had talked about what's going on social media, what's going on at Commissioner Court, what's going on in City Council when people go up to speak, the school board, and things are moving from more of an irate, people are getting upset over certain things, and some things are getting upset over that are not true. And now it was moving into what we thought might have been violence or bordering on a violent type issues here in Hood County. And I think it's still trending that way. I think with social media and some of the activists on both sides going back and forth, I really think people are getting to the point where we may be seeing some mental issues on people, whether it's following people, whether it's coming up and talking on open mic. But it's getting pretty bad, and I hope the Sheriff's Department and the City of Granbury, the Police Department, start looking into these things. And we're going to go over and maybe touch on some of these topics. But we've got Dave Eagle in the studio today. Dave, how you doing?
Good to be here, Mike. Glad to talk about this topic. Just to throw in something here to start this, when conservative Republicans get through with an election, they go on about their business. But when left-wing communists lose an election, they don't shut up. And that's one of the problems we got right now here in the kind of the off season, so to speak.
We do, and we've talked about that before. The Republicans seem to, and when I say Republicans, I mean the Republicans that actually follow the Republican Party platform, not the wannabes, not the ones that used to be Democrats but think they're Republicans or whatever you want to call yourselves, rhinos. I mean the true Republicans that actually look at what the platform stands for. They go to the precinct convention, the county convention, the state convention to build that platform. And if you want to change it, that's the way you do. You just don't sit back and say, I don't like half the platform. I like half the platform on the other side. And that's where you run into some of these issues of the fake Republicans tearing down what the Republicans actually stand for. And that's where I think, in my mind, they should say, look, I don't agree with everything. I'm going to keep my mouth closed on these things or change it during the conventions. But they don't do that. And we also have Nate in the studio today. Nate, how are you doing?
I'm great, Mike. Like y'all were talking about, we've got a lot of people that just haven't accepted the tremendous victory that conservatives achieved over this last election cycle. And they've, kind of morphed into a deranged group of individuals. After the last school board meeting I went to, I actually had a guy follow me out to the car and try to prevent me from leaving. And, it's like, at what point is something going to pop off? I hope it doesn't come to that, but it seems almost imminent at this point.
And you do, and that comes from people on social media, different social media groups, stirring things up. And I'm all about people going to Commissioner Court, City Council, School Board, and speaking to their elected officials and speaking their mind. That is their First Amendment right. But we're borderline people going up there not knowing what they're talking about and not knowing the true facts and just going after elected officials when, take for instance, our program. We have their words, their documents, their audio of what they're actually saying, not some pretend straw man conjecture. We want to make people look bad, so the Hood County News will go, oh, this person said, the big anecdotal evidence that CNN likes to use, and it's kind of an oxymoron, the two words, and that's what they like, the Hood County News and these little splinter groups on social media like to use. But what's occurring is you have unsuspected people that aren't involved in the process that will believe these people in these groups. And some don't know, but some do. And I call those front row Pharisees. So, if you want to take a look at yourself and you're doing it for the different reasons, you're a front row Pharisee. And if you have to ask yourself, am I one? Well, then you are. And those are the people that go to all these meetings, and well, you know what a Pharisee is, but let's get into Hood County News. They just did an article, Hypocrisy News. They just did an article on, I guess you, Nate and Dave were at the courthouse on one of the ICE days, right?
Correct. Yeah, we were, I had gone up there to do a little bit of work, and the steps were iced over. And
Wait a minute. You mean you still went to work when the winter storm was here?
Well, not according to them. But,
okay.
But anyway, I don't need to rehash all that. But it's morphed into this a ridiculous story that the Hood County News, for instance, they must not have much to do if me going to the courthouse on a closed day to do something and have a friend come over and help me get ice off the steps. They must not have anything to do if that's all they got to talk about. I would suggest that people read the letter that I sent to the city council and see how see what you think I said to those people. It's never what the Hood County News, the way they spin things. And speaking of the Hood County News, what's their subscription rate now? Did anybody knows it? It must be less than 6,000.
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
I think
I canceled mine just recently.
I think there's an outlet out there that's got the Hood County that advertisers use to see, okay, how many people are subscribed. And I think it's about 5,600. And then they have a formula where the readership would be 2.5 of that. So you're talking about 5,600 people that subscribe to it now, which means a readership of maybe 13,000. And I would say most people, their readership doesn't read it all. They just glance through it if they do anything, or use it for birdcage liner. Maybe when they take their dog for a walk, they take a copy with them for that. But whatever the case, I think that the written newspaper is in major decline, and I think that they're on life support right now, to be honest. Not
just here, but everywhere as far as print media. But I saw in the article that was posted online, somebody sent me a screenshot, and I looked at it, and of course, they can't do an article without throwing your name in there, Nate. And, I guess you were just there that day, right?
Yeah, Dave called me up. He was like, hey, you got a hammer at the office? Because I was doing work over at mine. So, yeah, be up there, help you bust the ice. I can't have Dave falling and getting injured, especially on county property.
No, can't have that.
So you're up there, and the Hood County News, of course, has nothing else to write about than good old, Dave Eagle and Nate Criswell.
Yeah, and I'm to reiterate, because I had somebody, former guy that lost to the school board race miserably, but he overheard me say yesterday when Representative Slauson was here that I was kind of bragging about being, getting free advertising from the Hood County News, and that's kind of the way I feel about it. You guys are fixated on me for some reason, and Nate, and so it's like, thank you for the advertising, appreciate the stories. I mean, I know they're fairy tales. And so you're really creating a myth about my side of the political spectrum, and you're too, I can't say the word, stupid. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Foolish to understand that, it's like, thanks, appreciate it.
Well, they've been writing about all of us, me, Dave, Mike, going back a few years, Katie, Dub Gillum. I mean, they try to put out these hit pieces
Melanie,
all the time.
Karen, yeah.
Melanie and Karen,
yeah.
And they try to put out all these hit pieces. But what it turns into is people see through their bias. And, when the paper was bought a couple years ago after the conservatives started an advertiser boycott and forced the old owners to sell to hide, When him and Sam Houston were up at Walmart trying to give away literally copies of the paper and say, we're the new Hood County News, we're not going to do things the way we used to. They haven't changed a bit. They tried to hide it for a little while, and there were some of us, I remember having this conversation with you, that said, they're going to keep that mask on until the first round of primaries, and it's going to come right back off. And look where we are. Yeah,
and I've said before, I said, they've got control of that paper. It's like CNN or MSNBC, anything else like that. And, more power to them for trying to take their agendas, whether it's the drag queen stuff or whatever it is, the Christian stuff, white Christian nationalism. And they're trying to pound that, religious liberties, in their own direction. And they can because they own the paper. And when they get caught doing it, that's when they kind of fight back and they don't like it. But Dave, you mentioned state rep, and she was here and spoke to some of the chamber people and whatnot. But there's a bill out, and I believe it's HB 622. Nate, is that correct? And that has to do with, I guess since the print paper is so old and doesn't reach as many people. The bill through Matt Shaheen, and I think Ernest Bales also has a bill similar to Matt Shaheen's, where you can do your governmental advertisements, things that you need to put in the paper and put out for the public view.
The public notices that are required under Texas law right now. So, like, local governments spend tens of thousands of dollars each year putting stuff in the paper that most people never see because it's back there behind the classifieds. But that's helping prop up this dying industry. And what this bill aims to do is remove that requirement and bring us into the 21st century and allow the legislation to catch up with the technology.
And that would be posting on any kind of social media groups, maybe the county or city's own, or the school board, their own websites.
Yeah.
And where more people could have access to it.
And it's a lower cost to the taxpayer.
Yes, a lot lower.
And then we're not propping up fake news like Hood County News and the other papers that Hyde Media Group owns.
Yeah, and I wanted to throw in that House Bill 622 would be an amending. It's proposing to amend the Texas Government Code, Chapter 2051, Section 1, and the whole idea of the notice requirement in the law is to get notice to the people where the people have an opportunity to see what's happening and even voice an opinion or what have you. If there's an objection to something or whatever you want to call it. And the newspapers are not getting it out there anymore because nobody's reading them. So I would say that we get more activity on our websites, for instance, and electronically than the newspaper gets. So what is the purpose of the law? It's to give the most people notice that you can give. The newspapers aren't hacking it anymore. So they need to be, the county government, for instance, city government, school board, they need to be able to put their notices where people will see the notice, not hidden in a paper that nobody reads.
Well, and it'll be interesting, especially here in Hood County, to see how this goes over, because everyone knows that Hyde Media Group is owned by Paul Hyde, and he's juiced into the city. He's got the city attorney contract for roughly $200,000 a year on top of the tens of thousands that he gets for those required notices. And given how much cover he gives to the city through the newspaper by not reporting things such as the Murillo lawsuit that's right now being appealed in federal court, it'll be interesting to see if the city decides to save taxpayer money or keep lining their buddy's pocket.
Our information is factual. Now, we have opinions about the factual information. We just don't have a Facebook group that goes out there and spews stuff that they lie about, that they don't understand, and then it spreads to the front row Pharisees and it spreads to the people in the public, and they're not getting the real shot of what's going on. And I suggest that you know, if you're out there and you're wondering about it, look some stuff up for yourself. Go look at and do information, request information acts, and do some digging of your own. Don't let just Blue Shark or the Hood County News or somebody else do it. Look for yourself. And don't be hoodwinked, because that's what the Hood County News, they're putting, the whole county's hoodwinked underneath the Hood County News.
Well, and a important distinction between the Shark Show and the Hood County News is that we don't call ourselves news. To me, that is such a high bar of objectivity that it's like we report on the facts and we give our opinions with those facts. But the Hood County News likes to parade itself around as if it's some objectively written news outlet, and they're anything but. They're, arguably the media arm for the local good old boys that have ran this county, city, and school district into the ditch.
I agree with that, Nate. And, the Hood County News is a misnomer. It's the Hood County Gossip. And, they don't seem to be able to get a story straight. And it's just like these social media groups that they make up a narrative and they try to pin it on us. They say they got evidence of it. Nobody's got evidence of anything because they're lying. And it's amazing to me the pot being stirred the way they do it, but the Hood County News jumps right in the middle of that because basically they're a political organization run by a politically minded person who is nothing but an agenda pushed politician.
Well, and you bring that up and you bring in the politics with the Hood County News. Let's go one step further with a new, used, renamed, retooled, repurposed group. And now the new name is United Republicans of Hood County, who are, in my opinion, as far from Republicans as you can be, but you can use that name. You can use United, you can use woke, you can use
progressive,
whatever you want to use. But if
the baby blues,
if you can't follow the Republican Party platform, then what you do is you splinter off into a different group and you say, oh, they just can't get along with us because they don't like our ideas. They can't get along with anybody. Well, if you're not following the platform, then you're not getting along with that group. Then maybe you need to move on to be, whether it's Libertarian, Democrat, Green Party, whatever it may be. You're just, in your mind, you think you're Republican because on a national level, you might be. When it comes down to a local level, you are far from it because you're a tax and spend individual.
Yeah, it's interesting to see this group, which it looks like it's the same people that started a group several years ago. Y'all may remember the Common Sense Conservative Republicans of Hood County. It came up during, Mike, I think it was one of your elections. Yeah. And
same bunch.
That group turned into a dumpster fire. And then they started the Granbury Republicans. That group turned into a dumpster fire. Hood County Forward, they started that. That group turned into a dumpster fire. So we're just watching this on repeat, but it's interesting to see the Hood County News always tries to promote these people. It doesn't matter who the owner is. Under the old owner, they promoted the Common Sense Conservatives, which was a way to say Democrat. And then now this United Republicans, who is the biggest group of hypocrites. After reading their press release, this is the biggest group of hypocrites I've probably ever seen.
Well, here's the cold hard facts on that too. They know that in Hood County, any other party will not get elected in this county. So they're going to call themselves Republican no matter what, because they know that if they call themselves anything else, they don't have a snowball's chance in Hades of being elected. And that's all it boils down to. They're going, I'll call myself whatever I got to do to get elected. Here's the problem with that. There's a Republican platform out there. There's rules for the Republican Party. We have an executive committee, which they're all whining about, by the way, and they've got 2 or 3 subversive people on there, which is fine. That's how you change it. I'll give them this for having the 2 or 3 people on the EC. That's how you do it. You get elected on the executive committee, and you try to change it from within. But you don't go in there and knock tables over and break glass to get it done. You've got to get in and do it, basically through the party. They don't want to do that. So, more power to them. They have zero political clout. None. Zero. No political clout at all. So, and like Nate said, it's the same bunch.
You said they have no political clout. Let's go through this list of names. Nancy Alana, who got beat in her last election.
Miserably.
Brett Deason, who came in dead last behind a communist in a 3-person race. I mean, it's full of the long line of losers that have just been discarded by the voters over the last few years. Tony Mobley, another great example. Twice
he lost miserably, and he just won't go away. I don't know what his problem is.
But this is what this group has done in the past, and they use unity as the example. But
how could you be against united Republicans?
But the unity is not under the party, not under the platform, and they want to disagree with it and take it another way. And we've already been over how to handle that. But what we find is when you talk about United Republicans of Hood County, they are the same group who are still trying to hoodwink the rest of Hood County, and you have the Hood County News coming in underneath them to say, come on, let's all be a group. Let's be the Hood County News. Let's be the United Republicans of Hood County, the same group that needs to just change one word, the Republicans to Democrats or whatever they want to be. And people say, oh, they're not Democrats. Well, yes, they are. And I would rather them stand up for it than hide behind the names, monikers, whatever they want to use. And when you look at the Paul Hyde group, and I keep saying, he's still doing a good job of trying to get this community towards, the more socialistic left, the woke crowd. And in fact, he does have some people following him, the front row Pharisees and whatever that get things out of it. So, I keep having to say, kudos to that group. But if you're a true Republican and you're a true conservative Christian, wake up. You need to wake up.
Yeah, and I'm just tired of them lying about who they are. They're just bold-faced lying. Bold-faced lying. And it's like, get a grip. At least one of my opponents this last time had the tenacity to run as a Democrat, which is what he is. And there's that, at least he was able to do that. And I respect him for doing that.
And so do I. And I've said that before. I respect them that run. But half the members in this group supported your Democrat for your seat.
That's exactly right, except they don't have the stones to say that they're a Democrat because they know it's political suicide.
Yep.
They know. They watched one of the guys run against me, and he said he was a Democrat, and he committed political suicide, which is, I don't mind that with Democrats. They can do that all day long. But this is a different climate than the national climate. This is a different climate, for instance, than even the state climate. This is local. And so I'm curious to see how far this little United Republicans go, because we see right through you.
Well, and I find it interesting that they're trying to call for civility and they're trying to call for, being able to disagree without being disagreeable. And Mike Scott, one of the spokespeople for this group, at a recent commissioner's court function, talked about throwing a frag grenade at Dave Eagle. Other people that are associated with this group have talked about scalping the county clerk or taking me out to a train station. Stop with the BS. Just say what it is. You're trying to subvert the Republican Party and hoodwink everybody.
Correct. And it's amazing how, and then say all that, and then cry for inclusiveness and unity. It's like, give me a break.
It sounds exactly like something out of the Democrat playbook.
Right out of the Democrat playbook.
And people are being played here in Hood County. And, you kind of, at some point, you don't want to bring attention to it. But there are some people that they're not as strong, and they get caught in the middle of that. And they're kind of teetering on both sides. And you got to just say, look, just do your own research, wake up, because things are changing here in Hood County and throughout the nation. And if you're not right with yourself, then you're going to lose.